Bum, 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 bum. Da-da, da-da.
Did that the other night.
Bum, 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 bum.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that we don't know much about sports, so we had to bring two guys that do. My name's Matt.
Brian.
I'm Paul.
I'm Mike.
And Mike, I know you know a ton about sports. Why don't you bless us all with all of your sports knowledge? Just sum it all up in like one sentence.
So most of the time you want to score more points than the other team, except
No
when you
way.
don't.
Thanks, Madden. All right, so go ahead, Paul.
Well, here's what I got. Real football is what we call soccer in the United States.
So have you seen that clip that's been going around about how like soccer was actually like what they named it in England first?
Oh yes, yeah. I'm well aware of the etymology of the word soccer. It's an English term, and they're snobs. So
I didn't know that. There, you can look that up if you're curious about it. I can. The brief cliff notes are England started with soccer, was naming it that, and then changed it to football, and didn't like tell America. And then
well, no, it's actually more devious than that. They started with football, and then soccer was an abbreviation for association football, or ASOC football. And then they commonly use the word soccer until that term caught on in popularity in the United States. And then they decided they're using it. We don't want to use that word anymore.
Yep. So for all of you guys who are preteens, or if you have preteens out there and they're using like their skibbity words and stuff like that, once you as an adult start using it, then they don't want to use it anymore. It's
That's
same
exactly
thing.
It. That is a perfect analogy.
Thank you. I thought it was Sigma. All right, so I've got a preteen. I don't know if you guys know that. 12-year-old.
You literally just killed the word Sigma.
I hope so.
It's officially dead.
I specifically, as a youth pastor, once people started talking about YOLO, I'm like, I'm going to say YOLO as much as possible. And guess what? It died out like months after that. You're welcome, world.
Cheers.
All right, so sometimes I use my lameness for good. It's my cross to bear. Well, it is the month of the Olympics. It is the month of preseason football. We are so close to the actual football season, and by this point, you've already seen Caleb Williams doing awesome in preseason. You're like, that guy, he's going to go somewhere. So you're excited for it. I understand, but we wanted to dip our toes in the fantasy football pool. I do, Brian. I don't think you've ever done fantasy football, right?
No, I have not. I might be the only one here who hasn't.
Yeah, I've got 6 leagues this year. How many of you guys got?
Gosh. I'm down to 1.
1 and 4. All right.
I have previously had 4. That's the most I've ever had.
To be fair, 2 of mine are best ball leagues, which they just are draft and then you're done. You don't touch it for the actual season. So that's kind of cheating to call them part of the leagues.
That's a lot of drafts take a long time, though.
They do. I did a slow draft. It was 32 teams, and it was a slow draft, and you had like up to 4 hours. It took us a week and a half to draft 11 rounds. So
let's hope it doesn't take that long tonight.
Guys, I have a problem. All right. So we wanted to create our own TV team, a fantasy TV team. Now, to be fair, there's not pointing systems that we can do with this. We can't watch them actually play and put our show out like how we do in the regular season. But we thought we could put together a draft and we could get a couple different categories and we could do something fun with that. So we decided we're going to put together the best comedy show. And real quick, I meant to say this pre-show. I meant to ask you guys this. No one has an animated character, right? Intended?
No, I didn't think of that.
Because I thought of it. I'm like, wait, if this is good and we want to do it again with other genres, animated is a perfect genre to do this with. So we have comedy team that we're putting together, and we've got 6 roster spots we're drafting. We are drafting a main character. We are drafting a sidekick. We're drafting a villain. We're drafting a subgenre, and you'll kind of see as we're drafting what those are like. We're drafting a potential love interest, and we are drafting a trope arc. something that you see in a lot of comedies that you want to see pop up in your show. And so those are our 6 roster spots. We're going to treat it like a snake draft. I'm going to start. Brian's at number 2, Mike's at number 3, Paul's at number 4, and then Paul's going to turn around and he's going to pick right after his 4th pick, or after we get to Paul, he's going to pick twice in a row, and it's going to go backwards, and we're going to go back and forth like that. And if someone picks someone, that's it. You can't pick it. I can't pick a player that Brian takes. I can't pick a player Mike takes, etc. And so you can have, there might be some overlap. We'll kind of discuss it as we go along. Hopefully we're not fighting too much about who's a villain and who's a love interest and etc. If you can't tell the difference, then you might have been married for too long. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and start. What'd you say, Brian?
I think the fact that we have like just opening up to any comedy show makes it less likely that we'll have overlap. Whereas if we were drafting like from characters in The Office, we would definitely have overlap.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm excited to see if I take someone's. So, I'm going to start because this is the guy that I really wanted to build my roster around. I'm starting with a villain, and I am drafting number 1 overall pick, Michael from The Good Place. Now, I know I'm kind of stretching a little bit with villain because he starts off as a good guy, turns villain, goes, and then...
You got that reverse. He starts out as the villain.
He starts off as the good guy from our point of view.
Oh, from our point of view, yeah.
Like the good guy.
Yeah, but he actually was the villain. We just didn't know it.
Yeah, sorry for the spoilers on a 10-year-old show.
But not quite 10 years old yet.
But here's what I think Ted Danson brings such an awesome presence to the role, and I really would love to see what he does with this next group of people as kind of the puppet master and having fun torturing them sort of role. And there is room for redemption as well, and maybe that would be how the show would play out in this one too. But right now, he's the villain. That's who I'm picking as my villain. So, Brian, you're up.
So I can pick anybody, not just the villain, right? I can choose anybody.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well,
yep.
I thought we were going through one category. We're going to jump categories all over the place? Okay. So it's
as
like
long as you felt your team, keep your mind ready.
Okay.
Your team ready.
I'm going to have to write this down. All
okay.
Right.
How about this? Just because Matt, you chose Michael from The Good Place. I'm going to move to my sidekick, which is Jason Mendoza from The Good Place.
Good pick.
He fits well with my lead character, who we'll get to later. But since you started with The Good Place, I think he's more likely to get taken than my main character, so I wanted to get him knocked down early.
Yes. Man, Jason Mendoza, he's a fun character, and he can fit. He's the personality to fit in a lot of different types of shows.
Like, he's dumb. He's kind of like the same thing as like Andy from Parks and Rec, where he's dumb, but he has good intentions. He has the good heart, so you can use him. You just can't trust him all the time because he's an idiot. It makes for an interesting dynamic.
True. People said that about me. All right, Mike, you're up. Who do you want to take?
Well, I mean, quarterback is the way that you go in a fantasy draft if you're going to go with cherry picking the top person. So since you guys have left main character for me, I'm going to go Ted Lasso.
Oh.
I had it. Paul and I
Ted Lasso too. Good pick.
Ted Lasso, the character, is just, he carries a show. You could have rotated a lot of different characters around him, and that's exactly what you're looking at and why Paul and I wanted him.
I expected he would be gone the first or second pick, so I kind of have to rewrite everything else because I was going to go with a different main character, but if Ted Lasso's sitting there, I got to take him.
Yep.
I considered him as well.
Listen, like when you're in a fantasy football draft and it's like sometimes there's just like that obvious number 1 pick and it's usually like a top running back or a top wide receiver. Like last year it was like Justin Jefferson everybody wanted Justin Jefferson. I think Ted Lasso is that pick. It's like everything else now, like doesn't matter who you put around him. It's going to be a good team now. Like you just got to fill out your roster at that point.
Man, I think he's going to have a dip in production this year, though. I think
considering he's done. All right.
All right, Paul, go ahead.
Well, you know what? I feel like the main character is paramount here. It's like you're starting running back on a fantasy football team, and so I'm not going to waste any time I wanted Ted Lasso. I'm bitterly disappointed. But I will get over it. And I will take Michael Scott because
Those are my two.
I think he's the only other main character that's like the next level there. I think he's gonna play in any league. He's the clear number 2 choice for main character. And as we already did a ridiculously long Office ranking episode, and Michael Scott was the number 1 character on the greatest comedy show of all time, according to this podcast. That's my choice.
He was also ranked the number 1 on our protagonist, and he went against Ted Lasso. I think is how that ended up going.
I think Ted Lasso beat him.
I thought Ted Lasso won in the final.
I thought Michael. We'll have to go back and check the tapes, but not right now because I don't want to.
Ooh, instant replay.
That's fair. Not right now. I don't want to. All right, Paul, you get a second pick.
I'm coming back. Okay. I think this pairing is ideal. It's almost like having a quarterback wide receiver combination, but I'm going to just go ahead and pick mockumentary as my subgenre. And I think Michael Scott in a mockumentary, it's tough to beat.
That's fair. I'm having a hard time now that both of my main characters were taken. Of like, okay, this character. Well, are they a main character? I don't know.
Well, and you got to think too now. Like, do they work well together? Are you going to get good production with your sidekick and with? It's got to fit. You can't just put 2 good characters together. They got to be a team.
True. And I'm trying. I also don't want to have like 2 of the same from the same show because.
No, yeah, I agree. In fact, I think that should be a rule. I don't think you should have a sidekick and a main character from the same show.
I'm just gonna replace. We're gonna recreate The Good Place here, and I just want everyone from there. All right, Mike. Second pick. What do you got?
So Paul threw me for a loop because mockumentary was my next pick. So I feel like Paul and I just snatched each other's picks.
Yeah, that was payback.
I'm going to go a little bit off here since I don't know if Brian's going to take this one or not, but I feel like this is one I want to grab. I'm going to go villain, and I'm going to go Tammy 2 from Parks and Recreation.
Not my choice, but I did consider her.
I like the idea of her and Ted and the effect that she could have on Ted, similar to the effect that she had on Ron Swanson. I
think there'd be a lot of rebuffs there. But like politely, like I don't know, kind of just I don't know what to do with this, but I appreciate the energy and the attention, but I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, but Ted and Ron are also very different characters.
They are very different characters, but the idea that there's this former love interest that comes in and completely throws Ted off of his normal game would be fantastic.
So are you saying that Tammy would be Ted's former love interest?
Hypothetically.
Okay.
That's one possible way of doing it. Or just being someone that's way too interested in him.
There's a lot of ways you can go with Tammy, too.
Yeah, you can definitely write it that way.
So all right, when Parks and Rec did that like COVID reunion thing, one of the best uses of that was having like Ron have Tammy tied up because they're actually married in real life. Yeah. Well, I'm going to also take my subgenre only because I think that this is one that Matt might have. So my subgenre is going to be narration from the main character older, a la Goldberg's or How I Met Your Mother.
That's a good subgenre I didn't think of, but it's not what I have.
Okay, wait, run that back for like, the simple-minded, less TV educated here.
The TV will be narrated by like an older version of the main character, like in How I Met Your Mother, okay. Older Ted, or the Goldbergs. It's Patton Oswalt is the
Wonder
older
Years.
Ted. Yeah, Wonder Years. I also have, when we get to my main character, I also, just for fun, I also decided what actor I would want to be the older version of my main character.
Nice. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and do sidekick because I'm still trying to figure out main character. And I had 2 potential sidekicks based on who was left from my main character. And now it feels really weird to put the cart before the horse and pick a sidekick over the main. But I think I'm going to go with Joe Bluth from Arrested Development. That I think him being tortured by Michael, he's a character that's a lot of fun to watch him frazzled and just trying to make the best out of really stupid situations, usually the ones that he causes himself. So I think it would be really easy for Michael to torture him, and then it would create a lot of fun comedic situations. So I think Job is going to be my sidekick. I'm locking in.
That could be interesting.
Oh, and I have another. Oh, it's
right
me
back
again.
at it again. I know, picking on the ends, it makes it interesting.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a trope arc because I want to kind of give an example for everyone and to kind of see that. And I know that there's some tropes, some of that I like, potential ones that I listed that we might hit are like, will they, won't they? Like, that's probably, if we're doing the top rated of trope arcs, that might be one of the top ones, is that so many shows go back to that well. I want to do the bait and switch trope. And to have, like, speaking of Arrested Development, there's like the doctor that they have that's all his character is. He comes in and he says the wrong thing, but he says it like it's a doctoral advice. It's just like, Buster came in and a seal bit off his left arm, but he's all right. It's like, oh, good, he's gonna be all right. Why are you responding to the news this way? He's all right. Just he's lost the left side of his body. His right, and so like just the way that he says things is terrible. So I like that switcheroo dynamic. And I just think that would be a lot of fun in having that as kind of the trope that we go back to.
I can see Michael doing that to Job a lot.
Yeah. All right, Brian.
I'm debating because, like, obviously you want to start out with your main character to build your show around, but my love interest is the one that I think is more likely to be able to actually get taken. So I'm going to jump there. The love interest to my yet to be seen main character, I'm going to go with Rosa Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Wow. I think she would have great chemistry with your main character.
So, okay, now wait, you're saying Rosa with your main character?
Yes, that's how I envision it. I mean, I suppose it could go with Jason as well, but that's not how I envisioned it.
But the strategy here, Mike and Paul have already gotten their main character, so if you take your main character next, for sure you got that one.
Yeah, well, I'm not too worried about you guys taking my main character. I thought that it's possible Mike or Paul or you would have taken the love interest of Rosa, so I wanted to get that knocked down before they had a chance to take her.
So I need a love interest for Michael Scott. Is that what we're saying here?
So in our pre-show, I had said that because you might have your character get stolen, that you can say love interest for some unnamed character, like that she's just like if
or
if you had
be your sidekick character or for your villain.
Yeah. Like if you said Pam Beasley, the Pam and Michael, I don't think anyone would buy that romance. I just don't think that works. But you can say it's for this other character. Obviously, you want to pick one that's not in the same show.
Okay, I can work with that.
All right, Mike, what do you got?
I'll keep the love interest dominoes falling here. I don't think you guys are going to go with this one, but this is one that I would thoroughly enjoy watching. I'm going to go with Gloria Pritchett from Modern Family.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I like that. And that she'd be paired up with Ted.
That's what I'm thinking. That she'd be paired up with Ted, someone he works with or something like that. That Ted, has a love interest relationship with.
Mm.
It's good.
I think
I don't know who that is.
Sofia Vergara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've watched maybe one episode of Modern Family, so.
Oh, she's incredibly underrated on that show. She's hilarious.
Okay.
I've seen about, I think, maybe 2/3 of the show. I haven't done a full rewatch. I've seen a good chunk of it though.
My wife and I were last night looking at like what we reached the end of our New Girl rewatch, and so we're like, well, we need a new show. And Cobra Kai, we watched the 5 episodes of season whatever it is. We watched those pretty quick. So we're like, what are we gonna watch? And we went by Modern Family. I'm like, we've never watched this. That might be something, but we just kept scrolling. And we ended up settling on. I've seen 2 seasons of it, but not all of it. We settled on Succession. She's never seen any of it, so we just started Succession together. Just so everyone knows.
Good to know. Does that mean I need to start watching it so we can do a podcast on it?
It's a good show. I've seen
Okay.
2.5 seasons of it, and it's good. You hate all the characters, but it's good.
All right. Well, maybe I'll check it out just for future reference.
Yeah. All right, Paul, what do you got?
All right, so I'm gonna go love interest too, and I am gonna try to pair with Michael Scott, and that's a challenging task because like you need somebody that is pretty quirky, pretty weird to fit his personality, somebody that will have enough guts to stand up to him, that isn't a doormat. So I'm going with Jess from New Girl.
Okay.
And I feel like that could she's a little bit too young, but like if the ages were to balance out, I feel like personality wise, she kind of has a similar personality to Holly.
Yeah.
And I think that could work.
They are both very naive, but at the same time, Jess and Nick are both very let's say street stupid. I'll say so, and they made that work.
Yeah.
Both of them really are good at their job. Like Jess is good at being a teacher, and Michael's good at sales. But like common sense things that you wouldn't think would be too hard is where they both suck at. So that could be an interesting pairing. See like who else would be on the show to be the straight man to them.
Okay.
They both are also very bleeding heart, and I just feel like getting that from both sides aimed at one person would be so overwhelming of like, stop being so sweet, you're making everything worse.
Yeah.
So the other person that I was thinking about for a love interest, at which I ended up not going with, was Lily from How I Met Your Mother. And she would be a little bit more, she's quirky, but she's a little bit more serious. But I didn't do that because I do want to take Marshall as my sidekick. Because I feel like Marshall can rock the Jim role, and definitely not the Dwight role, but he fits that Jim kind of stable personality. He's a genuinely good guy, and he played really well off of Michael and kind of kept him in line and kept him from doing really stupid things. We actually cared about him at the same time too. I think Marshall fits that role, so Marshall's my sidekick.
I finally found my main character, and I was going to pivot and do a female main character and partner her with Marshall.
That would have been great. That would have been a great idea. You know who's still out there, though? Jim is still out there.
That's true, he is. By the way, and if anyone wants to take it, you can. But who I would have probably picked as love interest when I was thinking about this, my mind went to Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy.
Okay.
And putting them like pretend they're the same age at the same time, and put them in there. I think that could have been.
Wait, now who's your villain again?
My villain was Michael from Good Place.
Good Place with Lucille Ball. That would be Ted Danson and Lucille Ball. That'd be an interesting one.
I think it would have been. Yeah. All right, Mike, go ahead and take something else that I was going to do.
So this is a little bit more than just a small trope, but it is still a common theme of TV shows. I'm going to go with Dead End Job. I feel like we've seen basically every show has either been based around a dead end job or, like Friends had a dead end job plot line. Several of them actually through the years. So I'm just going to go with that they're working in a dead end job.
Nice. That's up to me?
Yes, it's you.
Okay. So I'm going to finally reveal my main character. And keep in mind, so he's paired up a love interest with Rosa. His friend is going to be Jason Mendoza. I'm going to go back to the 90s. I'm going to go Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World.
Wait, he's your main?
Yeah, he's my main.
With Rosa?
Yeah, you wouldn't think so.
No,
Corey's
I really
main
wouldn't think so.
Okay, Corey is kind of the main character, but there's like
He's
a lot
Boy in Boy Meets World.
I maintain that the boy transfers between Corey, Sean, and Eric.
No. Sean is a sidekick.
Sean has way more interesting stories than Corey does, I think.
But he's not the protagonist.
Well, Eric's the protagonist in mine.
Whatever. I'm taking a not quite main character when I do main character, but I feel like my main character is closer to main than yours is. I'm just gonna be honest.
That's fine.
Let me just. Oh, was that it?
That's mine. That's my pick.
Okay. I'm surprised that there's this other character that's out there. So I'm going to go ahead, and I know that Ray Barone is the protagonist of Everybody Loves Raymond, but his wife is equal parts with him a protagonist. I'm putting Deborah as my main character, and she as tortured by Michael. And that's who I thought, Deborah and Marshall. That would have been, I think that could have been a very good love interest relationship. Again, their ages would be the same on this show or similar, and not Patricia Heaton now versus Jason Segel. So I'd have Deborah, and I'm going to pair her up for love interest. Once again, similar ages on there with Chandler Bing. I think that both of those two together being tortured with Joe Bluth as their sidekick in this hellish landscape, I think that could make for some really good comedy, because all three of those characters, Deborah, Job, and Chandler, we've seen be extremely flustered and get some great comedy out of it. I think we could get some good dynamics between those two.
And honestly, I think that's a better pairing than Marshall, just because Marshall's a little bit straighter of a character, and Patricia Heaton's character is pretty straight too. I think just adding that kind of sarcastic, witty Chandler Bing, I think that's a better pairing, honestly.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I agree. I think it's a good pairing.
Did anybody else besides me, like, I thought of like the scenario as to like how these characters came together, and I'll wrap that up when I get to my I'll do my when it gets to my turn again. I'm gonna do my villain, and then I can show you, and then lastly I'll do my trope, and that I thought it all out, how these characters all came together and why they're interacting, or is it just random for everybody?
It is your turn.
It is your turn, and no one's stolen any of your setup here.
It's my turn. Oh no, because I have to do my villain first, and then when it comes around, I'll do my trope.
Okay, go and do your villain.
My villain. So it's interesting, Mike. You said that you were worried about my villain being taken when you said Tammy too. My villain is from Parks and Rec. I'm gonna take Jeremy Jam as my villain.
You got jammed.
Yep.
All right. You're right. I had thought of him, but I don't think he's strong enough, especially for what I'm going for. I thought Michael was the.
That's pretty niche. That's pretty niche.
It is. I agree. All right, Mike, you're up.
Well, for subgenre, I was going to try to choose between flashback storytelling and mockumentary, and those are both gone already. So I'm going to go 4-camera live studio audience.
Nice. I love a good live studio audience sitcom. That's.
So would it start with one of the characters saying like, "This show is filmed for a live studio audience"?
Oh, of course it would.
Yeah.
That's very fair. Okay. So I need a villain and a trope arc, right?
Yep.
And I know what I want for my villain. So I'm going to go with that first. All right. So the villain has to be a villain to Michael Scott. And we all know the villain in The Office, even though he wasn't really a villain, was Toby. Right?
Oh, gosh.
Toby or Charles Minor or Robert California. There's a lot of them, but Toby for Michael would be Toby.
For Michael, it was Toby. Like Toby was Michael's arch nemesis, and so I feel like I need a slightly non-traditional villain, somebody that's not evil to the core, like your typical like nemesis on a show. Because Michael is weird enough that it doesn't. He doesn't need a rational reason to hate this person. And I thought about like who are some of the stranger villains out there. And the one that always blew my mind that ended up being a villain that I always thought was just such a weird story arc was Nate from Ted Lasso. And I just feel like even though Nate was a genuinely good guy, and the whole like twist where he became a villain was kind of unbelievable, like it actually makes sense to me that Michael would hate Nate for whatever reason. Like he could find a reason to hate Nate. And so I'm going to go with Nate because he did end up being a villain for at least season 2, right? Yeah. And I think that Michael could irrationally hate Nate. So and push him away and make him mad too. So
I appreciate the logic. You walked us through it and I understand where you're coming from.
So it's funny when I was watching Ted Lasso originally, because we're doing it for the podcast. Matt, you had already caught up with it at that point in the first 2 seasons, and I remember texting you. This is before Nate became a villain, saying like, I think Nate could probably be one of the characters that would be like worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer, and then as soon as I said I caught up with it, like, remember this comment you said? I bet that was wrong.
Oh, that didn't age well at all.
Yeah.
You know who could lift Thor's hammer? Richie. No, not really. But
who's Richie?
Anytime I can talk about how good Richie is, I'm going to.
Oh, Richie. I was thinking
that Richie from
yes,
the Bear.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
All right, Brian. All right. Back to sleep. All right, Mike.
Mike, we need your.
Well, I gotta pick my trope.
Right.
Still.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it does.
And I got to be honest, guys. I'm genuinely struggling with this one. So I'm gonna just, even though this lacks creativity, I will just go with "will they, won't they" as your kind of classic trope, because I feel like I have enough interest in the cast that I don't need something super clever to carry the show. So
you just quoted like every single show running producer out there. I know this isn't very creative, but we're gonna do "will they, won't they." We like the cast enough.
If it's good enough for Greg Daniels, it's good enough for me.
And Michael Scott and Jessica Day were both "will they, won't they" relationships.
Absolutely.
So we've been blue balled by them before. So.
I feel like I'm liking my team right now. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to do some. It'd be interesting to pick bench positions for each of these two.
Play the waiver wire a little bit.
So if we have an injury.
It's not a bad idea. I do like the idea of having like some other random characters.
Maybe we can hit some honorable mentions after we finish our draft here.
I like it. All right, Mike.
So I'm really stuck on Sidekick because while Ted Lasso pairs well with a lot of people, I do feel like one of the things that worked really well with his and Beard's relationship is Beard being kind of a little bit of a straight man mixed with a zany character at the same time. So I'm trying to think of somebody else who's in that same vein. I thought of Ron Swanson, but I already got Tammy too from Parks and Rec, so I'm going to stay away from Parks and Rec. But I think it's one of those things where Dwight's still sitting there, isn't he?
Yep.
I have no idea how Dwight and Ted Lasso would interact.
Yeah,
However,
I like that.
I feel like I got to take that. I feel like there might be a fun give and take there with both of them realizing just how strange the other one is at different times.
I think it's a great pick because it's a really complimentary way to look at it. You need somebody a little bit screwy with Ted Lasso because he's just so genuine and I mean, an honest to goodness, real good human being. You need somebody that's gonna like be a sidekick, but not be that normal too.
Oh yeah, the first time Dwight goes off on some tangent and wants to fire everybody, Ted Lasso's reaction would be great. And then when Ted's being ridiculously optimistic, Dwight's negativity would be a fun counterbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if they would be like sidekick from the beginning, or would they be like forced into like, oh, now we're working together, we have to learn, and then eventually grow into being a sidekick relationship, or would that be from the start? either way would work well, I think.
Since I went with the trope of a dead-end job, I'm kind of imagining them as being colleagues who are paired up a lot together.
Okay.
I thought that the power dynamic would stay the same of Ted Lasso in charge and Dwight as that sidekick, because I think that's where the comedy is. I think Dwight has shown he's really good at supporting the guy above him, and like sucking up and being a brown nose, even if he's trying to get to that spot himself.
Yeah, that would work great.
That part would work great, and I think because where the comedy of it is that Ted is very relational and Dwight is very logical. And so you have the obvious disconnect in that side, but Ted would still really try and get to the connection point of Dwight, and he just wouldn't understand the social parts of that. And it would be just really funny because it's not antagonistic. It would be kind of like a Peralta and Boyle situation where they respect each other enough, but it would still create some good opportunities, I think. Good pick. I approve of this message. All right, Brian. Go ahead and give us your final bit, and then you guys can maybe start thinking of just a couple bench players that would be fun to amplify your show, and we can do maybe 2 or 3 more rounds.
Okay, so my trope would be, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, like proving innocence. Like I think that figures that this is how it all comes together. Somehow Jam faked records or something and got Eric accused of a crime he didn't commit, so he has to do community service, which is where he meets Jason, who fits perfectly that he would be in community service, and Rosa, the love interest, would she'd be the one who would be the law enforcement, like facilitating them doing like roadside service. So then while they're becoming friends and doing all that, they're also trying to prove his innocence against Jam, who's in the system, trying to keep him under wraps for whatever reason. That's how mine all comes together.
Oh, proving. Okay.
Like
gotcha.
Eric's innocent, but was falsely accused, and he's like, by Jam, and that's why he has to be. And I did community service instead of prison, because otherwise it just turns into comedic Prison Break, which I don't know what to do. That way they can like off hours go and actually like have adventures outside of, but then they would be interacting with Rosa and having their like stable time where they have to be like doing community service, like picking up trash on the highway or whatever it is.
I get it.
That's how mine all comes together. And it would be called sentencing.
I agree that is a trope, and that would work. I think you got it.
Okay.
My subgenre is the last thing that I had, and then I'm going to throw out a bench spot here. My subgenre is going to be, I guess, sci-fi / fantasy, because if you've got, it's more like I want it like a supernatural element to it. I mean, you've already got Michael as a demon, and so it's really kind of that side of it, like a little Ghostbusters-y, a little similar to Good Place, to just have that element alongside of it. So that's why I didn't think anyone was going to take that. I figured that subgenre was rife for the taking, but to give a little bit of something weird going on, something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? And then speaking of that kind of supernatural side of it, I thought of a bench spot, potential love interest for Job. And she's more of a straight woman to his absurdity, but I think that her demeanor would really pair well with Job. Morticia Addams. I think that's a weird relationship you wouldn't see coming, but I think that the two of them would pair well.
I like that. That's good.
Thank you. Brian, throwing you on the spot.
I haven't planned for this, but so it's just like another character that could throw in the show that you could throw in the show.
Yeah, and it can fit something like this, or you can do like, hey, here's another trope or something like that. For bench spots, it's always like this is who gets subbed in if someone gets hurt. I don't know how that lines up for our metaphor here, but
season 2 arc person.
I like
flex roll.
Yeah, well, I like my idea that all mine are kind of like. I don't know, idiot is too strong of a word, but like, the goofy idiot kind of character, with the exception of Rosa, who's like the one stable person. So in keeping with that, I'm going to throw Kimmy Gibbler from Full House in the mix.
You need someone to level it out, man. You've
Yeah,
got
your
all
show
over the
is
board.
We have Rosa. That's what
wild.
Rosa's there for.
Rose is a little bit chaotic though too. Like she's
At
a
times.
little unhinged.
At times.
Yeah. You need. I know. Eric Matthews is your main guy, but you need a Feeny. You need like a wise person to bring some level of sanity to the mix.
Well, I'll think about it if we do another round.
Yeah, let's plan for one more round after
Okay.
this.
I figured I know who it's going to be already. We'll wait. Yeah.
So with my first villain, I went Tammy 2, and that was a really difficult decision because I had another person I was really strongly considering, and they're still sitting there. And this is a very different villain than Tammy 2. I'm going to go Bob Kelso from Scrubs.
Oh, I like it.
Both evil and everything that man said was hilarious.
I think also, like with her, Tammy 2 as like the head of the library, and Kelso as the chief medicine of the chief of medicine of the office or the hospital. I think both of them in their established control power roles, I think works really well too, even if they're completely different industries.
Well, I think it would be fun to have Bob Kelso 2 as Ted Lasso's boss. So you have someone who's constantly saying no to an eternal optimist.
I think that's a great point. Good call.
Okay, so I feel like just with the particular cast that I have, like I have the kind of main guy who's a little bit on the zany side, but not like a unhinged character with Michael Scott. And I have the Marshall, who's kind of a straighter character. I feel like Michael needs the Dwight role too, though, like somebody to amplify the craziness at certain points. So there's a few different directions that I thought about going with this. One of them potentially could be like a Andy Dwyer. I think he would play into Michael's stupidity and get themselves into trouble. But then, like, to go like the other direction, if I wanted to stay with Parks and Rec, April Ludgate would be a great fit too, and it would be almost more like the Angela role on The Office, but she's a little bit quirkier and a little bit funnier than Angela, but kind of has that like.
April doesn't take herself as seriously as Angela.
No, but she has that kind of eye roll, annoyed, like no, you're stupid. But then I think she's funny. She's significantly funnier than Angela would have been.
Oh, agreed.
The other the other person that I was thinking about, and I don't know if this would fit, but Kramer from Seinfeld might be an interesting character to add into that mix because he's just absolutely nuts. So I don't know. I'm gonna let's throw a poll out there. Should we go Andy, April, or Kramer? I'll let you guys decide.
I like Kramer. I think that's a great because Andy has like Andy Bernard energy. I know very different characters, but the energy is the same Andy, which is why it's funny that Andy and April are Andy and Angela. I think we've seen both how Michael reacts to both of those two personalities. I don't know if he has a Kramer. Creed is a toned down version without the hyperness of Kramer. He's the absurdity, but not the hyperness.
I was going to vote for April because I think you get another woman in the mix, and I'd love to see the April Jess dynamic. So
I forgot about that. That would be a good idea.
I was going to say April as well.
All right, April it is. We're going with April.
Another affirmative action hire. No.
Wow.
No, Brian, I like what you said about the April Jess dynamic because that would be interesting. Man, those two would not pair well. Like, for a relationship, I think they'd pair just fine for comedy, but they wouldn't like each other. Did you have any? Because I thought we were going to do one more kind of coming back. Did you have anything else to add, Paul?
Yeah, it's too much
Or do you need
pressure.
me to go again and we'll just?
I think, yeah,
I
I
have
need a little bit of
mine.
time to think about it.
All right, sounds good. So, what I was gonna in my mind, I kind of was like looking at different shows that I haven't picked, and I hadn't picked Community, and I'm like, I love the character of Jeff Winger. I love the character of Abed. And Jeff was an idea for a main protagonist with this setup in mind. They being tortured and ridiculous, and I don't know how that would play, and I think it would be fun to see him in there. But I think Abed would ground the characters well and he would roll with the punches really well because he's just used to things being absurd in his own mindscape, and I think he could make it worse for everyone else by just being like, yeah, this is an okay situation. So I'd love to see Abed in that role.
I think that works really well. At different times, I considered Abed, Chang, Jeff, Annie, and Britta for mine, but I didn't end up picking anybody for Community. So that finalizes your team, Matt, as main character Deborah, love interest Chandler, sidekick Job, villain Michael, bait and switch sci-fi fantasy with Morticia Adams and Abed in the mix.
Yes.
All right. I'd watch it.
I would too. These are great characters. I like it.
Okay. So I have my next bench one. So taking what you said about needing like a wise figure, but also wanting to keep with my vein of characters, I think the perfect mix. I'm gonna go with Wilson from Home Improvement.
Okay.
I
think that rounds out your cast a little bit.
Yeah. So I have Eric Matthews with Jason Mendoza, love interest Rosa Diaz, Jeremy Jam as the villain, narration from the older version of the main character, who I envision Matt LeBlanc is the older version of Eric, who is narrating it, proving his innocence along with Kimmy Gibbler and Wilson.
Nice.
Right.
The only weak link in that is I've never been a Kimmy Gibbler fan.
That's fine.
She gets on me. So
you've seen like what 2 episodes of Full House?
True. But in
all
those 2 episodes, never been a fan.
That was enough. That was strong take on Kimmy Gibbler.
Honestly.
And Paul, we've never talked about it, but can I assume you are also not a huge fan of Kimmy Gibbler? Because I know how you feel about Phoebe.
Oh, I hate Kimmy Gibbler. Yeah, and I've seen every episode of Full House.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know if I've seen every. I've seen most of the episodes of Full House.
8 out of 10 times when a character is supposed to be annoying, I typically will agree. Mm-hmm. But that's a knock on most of the writing. It's hard to write an annoying character that's not actually annoying.
That's true. All right. So, Mike, round us up with another bench.
So I'm going back and forth between a couple of different people here, but I knew I could take my time because I'm going to go with somebody from MASH. And I'm going back and forth between Colonel Potter, kind of as a little bit of a foil to Bob Kelso, in that you have an older, wiser character who this time is good-hearted instead of rotten to the core. The other one that I think I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with Father Mulcahy, because Ted Lasso, it worked really well when he had a counselor. He had someone to confide in. He had someone who was serious that he could talk to. And Father Mulcahy from MASH can provide that, while also occasionally giving a little bit more of a comedic beat himself, with some dry humor.